Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. I am your host for the day as I come on here sometimes and like to do these interviews. Today we have a very special guest, coach of the Florida basketball team, Coach Mike White. How's it going, Coach?
Great. How are you, man?
I am doing well this morning. We are very excited for this interview. First, though, we have to thank the people who make this possible. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member of the FDIC. Coach, I wanted to start with how you started with your career at Ole Miss as a point guard, and I always see that these coaches are very well adept to transition into coaching smoothly when they go from being a floor general. How has it been for you going from being a player as a point guard to transitioning as a coach and leading the team that way?
Yeah, it's a great point, Jack. I think that a lot of guards, for whatever reason, end up getting into coaching. There are a lot of coaches too, of course, that are former bigs or forwards or what have you, but there are a lot of point guards as well, and I happen to be one of them. Had a great opportunity to play for Coach Rob Evans at the University of Mississippi. Very much a role guy amongst some very good players, and we had a really good run. I was empowered for sure, by Coach Evans and his staff to direct traffic, if you will, offensively and defensively at times as a point guard, as a lot of us often are allowed to do or challenged to do. And I feel like it definitely helped me moving forward early in my career as an assistant coach, and in terms of just overall understanding of the game and the level of communication needed, and obviously still using it today with the Gators.
Right, and we're very happy to have you here in Gainesville. Anytime we can get a coach, especially following such a great coach in Coach Donovan, to fill his shoes and keep the Gator tradition really at a pristine level. How has it been for you coming into Florida, knowing that tradition has been there, kind of making your own staple while still maintaining that rich tradition we see in the background there?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you gotta love the virtual image here that we use with recruiting, of course. And when I jumped on this morning, it was behind me, and we left it on there. Of course, we're very proud of it. It's Coach Donovan and his legacy that he leaves here. It's the reason that we're here. It's the reason that this job has become what it is, and one of the best jobs in the country, and one of the best jobs in the SEC, which obviously makes it one of the best jobs in the country. But the run that he and his staffs and players had here is it speaks for itself. It was an amazing run. He is one of the most he's one of the best coaches in the game, really, at any level. And so we're proud to be here. I think you mentioned, Jack, about kind of adding our own niche to it, or what have you, finding our niche with it. It's really not about that to us. It's about trying to grow every day as a team, max out as a team, and see where where the chips fall really at the end of each and every season. We're going to continue to play a really high level schedule. We're going to continue to attract high level student athletes and people. That's what Florida does. But we would not have the opportunity to have the levels of success that we've had. And we've got to take it to another level, obviously, if the foundation is not laid by the people before us.
Right, and that's a great point, that there's always some other level to hit. And you guys seem to be always involved in the not the preseason, but the early season tournaments, and just trying to get yourself the most exposure, not only for national exposure and RPI, but to see those good teams like a Gonzaga in November, or you're playing Kansas in November, or something along those lines. Have you seen that affect your team in a positive way, instead of maybe just playing the UNFs and the FAUs of the world?
Yeah, I'll start negatively, Jack. I think that, unfortunately for us, in our 5-year run here as a staff, we've played collectively the hardest schedule in the SEC. And if you really crunch the numbers, we have played, if you take Ken Palm, RPI, now the net, you crunch all those numbers. We've played the hardest schedule in all of high major basketball. And last year, again, played the toughest schedule in our league. The negative is that, we may be sitting here at 10-5, but have a pretty damn good team with some quality losses, if you will. People don't talk about quality losses, but where we're not in the top 25 compared to another team that might be sitting there at 13-2, really with less quality wins than we have. So that's the negative. The positive is, at the end of the day, every time you compete against a high-level team with the right approach, you offer yourself the opportunity as a team for improvement and for development. And we like to talk about winning or learning. And when you don't win, you learn. Again, if you approach it the right way. So I feel like our schedule has helped us in each one of the last 5 years develop throughout the season and help us become the best version of each individual team by February, March. And that's what we're trying to do. It's really not about where we're ranked in the preseason or even mid-season. It's about getting in the NCAA tournament and trying to make a run, of course.
Right, and that's why I love college basketball so much. It's just because the itch of getting in the tournament, any team can win once you get into that NCAA tournament. Every team per se is on a level playing field. Now, obviously, other teams have advantages going in, and there are those Cinderella sleepers who seem to be sometimes favorites going in, where you get a 12 seed who's favored in Vegas in round one. So, the NCAA tournament, anybody can really win. I wanted to talk about, you said, to find the niche with every single team you have. As we know, college is cycling out guys left and right. I want to talk about how you've seen the game of basketball change as a whole. Obviously, with the whole three-point revolution in the NBA, kind of the high-intensity style, these guys are so much more athletic and they're bigger now. How have you seen it change from when you were a player at Ole Miss to transitioning to being a coach, and how have you adjusted your style of not only coaching but seeing the game for that?
Yeah, I think that there's been, since I played, I guess there's a few differences. Probably the biggest differences early, you're talking 20 years ago, 15 years ago, more and more ball screen, stolen from the NBA, of course. The simplest play in the game, the pick and roll, a lot of pick and popping, but ball screens became more prevalent, in my opinion, maybe later in my college career, but more so even when I was done playing, to where college basketball has become really, really ball screen heavy and less screening off of the ball. 20, 30, or 40 years ago, and you go back and watch some of that stuff, I just think there was less ball screens and there was more back screening, flare screening, pin downs, so on and so forth. You still have teams and programs in college basketball that are having success doing that. But I think for the most part, there are just a ton more ball screening now. And then specifically the last 5-10 years, more so in the NBA than in college, but I think you're starting to see it more in the college game. Just the floor being really, really spread. It went from 3 out, 2 in when I was playing a long time ago to mostly 4 out, 1 in over the last 20 years, with a conventional big for the most part, sometimes 2 bigs, sometimes no bigs, but a high percentage of the game for most teams are playing 4 around 1. And now you're seeing a lot of 5 out, especially in the NBA, less in college, but it'll get there. And we've done a lot of it here in the last couple of years. Some of it is personnel based, of course, but the NBA game now, the tempo is so fast, the skill level is so high, and you've got 5 guys out there a lot of times that can all pass, dribble, and shoot, which makes for really exciting basketball.
Right, and I mean, all basketball is exciting in the eyes of a fan and in the eyes of a junkie like you and I are, but there's something to be said about being able to put up these high numbers and seeing the ball move around a lot more. I feel like we've gotten away from hero ball in college, which is always a good thing. How have you been able to maintain that kind of team camaraderie? Because I know that there's never really any guy on your team who is the top scorer every night, really balanced attack, always have to, I don't want to say have to rely on somebody different, but always have somebody different that can step up. How has it been kind of keeping the ball moving and seeing that we have to go to the hot hand or whoever it may be to get a win that night?
Yeah, it's something that we struggle with as a program, as a staff, and I think most do, where it's a constant challenge to share it. No ball chasing, no ball sticking.
Mhm.
We want that thing moving, as if we're watching a game on TNT on Wednesday night. At the highest level, and it helps, of course, when you've got higher skill level guys in the game, of course, between the lines. But at times you've got to remind yourself that some of these guys are 17, 18, 19-year-old kids who they all want to win, but they also want to get theirs. It just like you and I did at that age, and it's a challenge. They've got to continue, all of our guys, to challenge themselves and each other. That if we win, we all win, and we've got to share it. We've got to take the right shot, not my shot, the shot that the defense gives us. And those are things offensively that we talk about as much as anything. But the best teams do it. The best teams share it, and they don't care about who gets the shot or whether I get 14 shots or 5 shots. It's about what we shot percentage-wise as a team and how efficient we were offensively.
Coach, those are all great points, because when you have a team that really works together, it makes it easier for everyone, not only the coach, to kind of manage that and go out and be successful. I wanted to touch also briefly on your Louisiana Tech career before Florida. Obviously, you had a great career there to get the job here at Florida. I have it in front of me, total of 101 wins and 40 losses. And in the 4 years there, 3 NIT appearances. How was that experience at Louisiana Tech, and kind of being the coach of the year and the team was going to the postseason help prepare you for SEC basketball?
Well, it was really my only experience, so I don't know how much it prepared us, Jack. But at least we had a little bit of experience there in those 4 years. You mentioned the NITs, and we're both proud, but it's also tough that those teams never had a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. It's a hard level there in the WAC, and then we transition, of course, into Conference USA. But from a scheduling standpoint, you're not afforded a lot of those places opportunities to get those quad ones, as they're called now. Mm-hmm. Those quality wins to help you get an at-large, and we just didn't get it done in those conference tournaments is really the bottom line. But had terrific regular seasons, 3 straight championships with what I thought was arguably one of the best backcourts in the country. Really, all 3 of those years in 2, 3, and 4. And people ask all the time, how did you get to Florida? What happened? What were you guys really good at? We were really lucky by the first class that we signed when we got the job. We took a couple guards and signed a couple guards, Jack, that really didn't have many options. Speedy Smith, it was us in a Division II team, and Raheem Appleby, it was really us in a walk-on situation. And those guys ended up being the best guards in our league. And so at the end of the day, we're at Florida because we had really, really good guards. And we had a big kid named Mike Kaiser, who I was texting with yesterday, who was on TV a couple weeks ago. I mean, we just had we had a really good team. Those 3 guys that I mentioned were 4-year starters, and they laid it on the line. They played with a chip on their shoulder. They were very close and connected, and it was a fun run. My wife and I and kids, we had a great time in Ruston, Louisiana. We'll always appreciate that opportunity.
Well, that's a great answer, Coach, and we love to hear that. I especially love to hear when lower level recruits really come out and kind of take off, kind of make their name known. I think Keontae Johnson was a little bit like that coming in, where maybe he wasn't as highly touted as the others, especially Kerry Blackshear, when he came in as a transfer pick to win preseason player of the year. How has it been with guys who maybe need a little more development out of high school and getting them in the gym and getting them to that next level in college?
Yeah, I just think it's such a crapshoot with rankings and stars and so on and so forth. And there are certain times, I think, where you and I might be at a high school game, and you can watch a kid, and if you know about his foundation and his circle and his level of maturity and discipline and you got a pretty good feel on all those areas, which is hard to really evaluate all of those areas. There are probably a handful that you could bank on that are going to be really, really good as freshmen. But there are hundreds that it's almost your best educated guess, right? And whether they're a 2-star or a 4.5-star, there's so many intangibles that go into it, and some of it they can't control. Some of the other aspects of some of these student athletes and how they impact a program or a team as freshmen are who they're playing with. What style of player are you playing? How much opportunity will they get as freshmen? How good is your current team? There could be a 3-star that goes to a place that is thrown in there and plays 38 minutes a game as a freshman, and then all of a sudden, he's an all-league guy, but maybe he goes to another place and he would have only got 6 minutes a game or had been redshirted. So there's just so many factors involved. We love whether you're a 2-star or 5-star guy. Obviously, we all love guys, coaching guys that have a chip on their shoulder that want to prove everyone wrong. That even with those stars, they're a little bit underrated. Still, high character guys. Love guys that want to be in the gym and work and improve and have motors, of course. And Keontae's one of those guys. I think that he was underrated. KJ Blackshear, I thought he came in, and I know he had crazy expectation. Thought he had a really good year. I really do. I mean, without him coming here, we would have really struggled. We played through him, and he did so many things for this team last year that didn't show up on the box score. One of the smartest guys I've ever coached, tough as nails. But you like seeing guys like you said, Jack. I'm a fan of Keontae as well, where he continues to show people that he's probably a little bit better than people thought.
Yeah, and I love to see that always. I mean, even whether it's a Gator player or somebody different. And I think KJ Blackshear was a little bit like that when he was at Virginia Tech. He wasn't as highly touted as maybe he should have been. And I remember watching some of those ACC games where he was just unstoppable, shot 25 free throws in the game. And, it may be boring to watch and it's frustrating when you're rooting against him, but the guy was absolutely dominant when he was at his best. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the recruiting trail. Obviously, it's one of the hardest things to do in all of sports, not only college sports, and it got even harder this year for you. How has the pandemic here affected your recruiting schedule going into next season?
It's really slowed it down a little bit, to be honest. Every year you challenge yourself as a staff to be careful, to take your time, to be patient. You're better off holding off and making sure, especially with the level of frequency of transfers, these days, of course. And I think there's upwards of 1,000 to somewhere near 1,100 at this point this year in college basketball. And around the corner, possibly next year, the NCAA will implement a one-time transfer exception, which could increase the numbers again. So, and if that's the case, are you better off taking a freshman or a sophomore, enrolling a guy as a transfer as opposed to a high school guy? I think it all depends. It's all case to case. But I think that to rush and take commitments from guys that you're not as familiar with, that you hadn't had a chance to see play last spring, this summer, this fall, I'm not sure that I anticipate going back out this September either. We missed last April. We've missed July. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of unfamiliarity, really both ways. Recruits with college coaches, and obviously us with lack of evaluations with recruits. We're doing our best to continue to develop relationships, texts, FaceTime, Zooms, of course. I've done more Zooms this summer than I care to talk about, but that's all you can do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is all you could do. Is that better to maybe look at getting a transfer guy who's had 1 or 2 years of experience under his belt rather than a high school guy where you can't evaluate his character? Because I mean, there's a lot of pressure on an 18-year-old kid to not only choose a college but go out and perform at a high level in front of all those screaming fans and whatnot. Especially right now with all this uncertainty, I'm sure guys are a little more out of shape than they'd like to admit. So do you think that maybe it would be a little more beneficial for a team like Florida to look at transfers, or are you guys still kind of focused on building that 4-year group and trying to make a run with the same guys?
Yeah, I think that it's got to be a mix, and it's got to be case by case and really season by season. We love. I think transfers you got to consider every year, especially moving forward when again we anticipate the one-time transfer exception rule will be passed at some point, and I think you got to consider those guys year in and year out. But you also have to consider the dynamic of your program and your team. You want to balance classes. You don't. Being young is one thing, but being painfully young is another thing. And we've been there the last couple of seasons. But we want continuity too, as much as possible, and we want our fans to know who our guys are, and we want guys to have opportunities to grow together and develop together, and have continuity and chemistry. So I think that probably the right mixture is the right call, and you want to be a little bit older than we've been, and then you want to try to stay older too. So again, balancing classes is big. We won't have a senior on this roster, yet we'll still be a lot older than we've been. So potentially, in a couple of years, we could be much older.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about a team like that who has no seniors, or maybe had just one or two who have now gone on to their next stage of life. And this year was an example of that. I think Blackshear was the only guy who had his heart ripped out there at the end of the year. And obviously, we feel for all the seniors in college sports this year. Do you think that there will be an extra motivation throughout the SEC next year to try to grab that title, since it wasn't claimed last year?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys, a lot of student athletes, a lot of college basketball players that are really chomping at the bit, and we've got to be really careful as we bring our guys back. We'll start up with some voluntary lifting next Monday. We're doing all of our physicals and such, the hurdles that we've got to jump to get to Monday, and really these guys, because of how last season ended or didn't end, Jack, their mentality is they're ready for a game on Tuesday, and we got to be smart about this, because I don't know where we are from a cardiovascular standpoint and strength and conditioning. We're behind, of course. We've got to get our legs back under us. But when that thing is tipped, whenever we are going to play, I think that you're going to see a high level of intensity throughout college basketball. I think there's a lot of kids that are juiced up, that are ready to compete.
Right, and there's a lot to be said also about how the NCAA tournament affects draft stock of college athletes. I know there was probably a lot of guys who were coasting on that, maybe saying, I'm going to try to get to the league this year, and didn't get that opportunity. And I know in the past there are several guys who stick out like sore thumbs, where they had a really good NCAA tournament, but maybe they're a bust coming out. Terrence Jones comes to mind. How is it going to be in the SEC with a team like Kentucky and teams like LSU kind of wading your way through those waters, whereas you can't really afford to lose to a team like Arkansas, but they're still very good if you really want to compete with the Kentuckys and the LSUs every single year?
Well, I think with the mentality that we'd like our guys to embrace, and I think that the championship teams do. We had some championship teams at Louisiana Tech at a lower level, of course, in that league. And you look behind me here, and you've got two of the best teams in the history of college basketball in 06 and 07, the Florida Gators, Coach Donovan's teams, that every day in practice, we call it the Super Bowl. We wear that out, and we probably should come up with a basketball term there. But every one of those pickup games, when you ask the guys on those teams, the Lee Humphreys and Corey Brewers and those guys, whether it's a practice, a pickup game, what have you, the level of intensity was through the roof. And whether you're playing a guarantee game where you're buying a Sun Belt team, or you're playing the last place team in the SEC or the first place team in the SEC, whether it's you or not, it should be the same mentality. A lot of times you're competing with yourself to be the best version of yourself. The highest level teams, the highest level really teams in any sport at any level, I think embrace that, just simply maxing out regardless of who your competition is, who the team is that you're playing.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It really is competition based. One thing that is not competition based though is Celebration Point here in Gainesville. They have been dominating lately. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate, with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Starbucks, and Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the head ball coach's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point. Going to take a quick break here and come back to Coach Mike White. Coach, again, thanks so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, Spa Royale, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to this Thursday edition of the PodUp Show with Matthews in the morning. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. July is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Coach, I wanted to touch on the playing career that you had after Ole Miss. I know it was short-lived, but that IBL stint really interests me when I was going through some notes last night. What was that experience like, being a member of the New Mexico Slam for the 1 or 2 years they were in existence?
Jack, first off, you must have been really bored. Secondly, this is going to be the worst part.
I read on there that
uneventful.
I read on there every player had to pay a $2,500 fine, or there was the price of the profits from parking and concessions were split among the players, or something along those lines. And it really speaks to kind of how the G League was when it was coming up. I mean, those guys are making hundreds of thousands now, but back then I really just wanted to know how it was kind of slumming it as a professional basketball player.
Yeah, hilarious. So you grow up your whole life living in the gym. A lot of us, that played the game, and your dream is to be on TV playing the game. Like, as you're watching the Lakers and the Celtics and the Bulls growing up, and the Pistons and all the runs that those guys had, you tell yourself and you shoot for the stars that one day you can play in that league. And again, at Ole Miss, I got 5 a game over my career. I averaged 5 points a game on some really good teams, of course, but I wanted an opportunity to play professionally and maybe have a chance to work my way up. So, funny story, I actually played for the Utah Jazz Summer League team, and you probably earned about 5 minutes at the end of some blowouts there in the Rocky Mountain Review. But a great experience. In fact, Coach Jerry Sloan actually came to some practices and did some instruction, and it was an unbelievable highlight. And obviously didn't get invited to their vet camp. And then my teammate was drafted, my college teammate, who's now the athletic director at Ole Miss, named Keith Carter. He was drafted by the New Mexico Slam. and they really needed like a third string point guard. And so they invited me out for training camp, and he was living in a hotel room. So we got the double, and I had a bed in his hotel room, and it was crazy because we had nothing to do. We're in a city that we were 22, 23 years old, and we were very unfamiliar with. And other than go to practice, we did a little golfing, and eventually I was the last cut. And so I had a team in England that called me over in Leicester, England, and I did some traveling, finally got over there. And once I was over there about a week, the New Mexico Slam called me back, Jack, and they say, hey, the guy who we've invited really to take the last spot on the team as a third string point guard and take the league minimum, which I won't even tell you what it was. He's refused to accept that salary. So will you take it? So I said, heck yeah. So I get back on a plane and I fly to Albuquerque, and here I am with my college roommate again, sharing a hotel room. And I'm a pro playing professional basketball. Didn't get a lot of minutes and really made it probably halfway through the season before the last cuts, and I got cut again. So I'm one of the only pros that got cut by the same team twice in a season, and I realized at that point I better start with some type of career.
Well, it's a great story, and it really is funny that you had to go all the way to England just to fly back and get cut. Our heart goes out to you in that regard. At least you've kind of made your roundabout way now, where it seems like you're coaching at MSG, or you get to go to Maui for that tournament every year. But I wanted to touch on MSG. Obviously, the most famous game Florida's had there in the last few years is the Chioza floater from three. Take me through that play, or even the last few minutes of that Wisconsin game, because that's an all-time great NCAA game where you probably have a fond memory of it coming out on top.
Yeah, incredible. I still get a pit in my stomach when you really think about how it unfolded late in the game, because I want to say we were up 12 with maybe 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, and really blew it down the stretch. And the kid had made an unbelievable play to tie it, and then we get down 5 or 7, if I'm not mistaken, in overtime, or that overtime period rather. Chris made some incredible plays. We were out of timeouts, and the matchup actually worked for us pretty well there in the backcourt, as we talked about. We got to blow up the court. I mean, we've got to go, and we had 2 of the fastest guards in the country at that time, and they denied Casey Hill. And Chris caught it with a little bit of momentum and just put on his afterburners, of course, and let it go. And we're all watching, and we thought, you know what? I mean, it's a low percentage shot, but it is Chris, and he's got great touch. And oh my goodness, it's got a chance. Wow! And it goes down. At that point, is it a 2 or is it a 3?
Right.
Let's hold tight here and let's figure out what the officials have to say. And I had one player. I've said this privately in some speaking engagements. I don't know that I've said this ever publicly, but I had one guy that 2 or 3 times during the year, I won't tell you which player it was, had convinced me that this guy was on the line, or I wasn't on the line, or what have you. Any type of there were 2 or 3 officiating questions that we were waiting as the officials go to the table. And they come back, and this player was dead wrong, those 2 or 3 times during the season.
Right.
Well, at this point, he comes up to me and he goes, "It's definitely a 3, coach." I said, no, I'm not listening to your stuff. Again, let's wait to see what the officials say. And I had one assistant that hit me he says, "Coach, I'm absolutely positive." I could see his face between his – I don't know how he saw it from the bench, but obviously when we got the news that it was a 3, we were elated. Incredible moment, and to do it, as you said, Jack, and MSG, just to be a part of that and to witness that game was really neat.
Yeah, you definitely come a long way from New Mexico, and I mean, obviously working up to that in the NCAA tournament, that was the year that you lost in that really close game to South Carolina for a Final Four berth. But those other years that it was the round of 32 where you guys lost, it seemed like every time it was a close game, every time if one bounce had gone your way, it could have been a totally different outcome. I remember when UConn made their run to the Final Four as a 7 seed, they needed a missed free throw and a putback to beat St. Joe's in the first round, and nobody touched them. That was the year Florida had a really, really good team and lost in the Final Four to them. So the NCAA tournament, I mean, it's just one bounce could go either way. How has it been trying to prep guys for that going into the NCAA tournament? I know you were going to go this year, and obviously things didn't work out, but going into a tournament in the first round, how do you prep your guys going for 7 straight wins?
Yeah, we're still learning it, really. You know, Jack, you mentioned that South Carolina game where we were up 7 at halftime, and you can't. I'll just be honest. You know, leaving the staff locker room at halftime, heading back out to the court, you had to rid of the thought that, man, we've got a real chance here to go to the Final Four, and it's 3 seconds, 5 seconds. Hey, let's focus on the first possession of this half. But we were that close, and they were terrific. And, just a couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks earlier, if I'm remembering correctly, we had beaten them at home pretty handily and played well. But they had an incredible run. But you mentioned anything can happen in the NCAA tournament. And really, I leaned on our support staff here because I hadn't been a part of it as a coach. We had some NIT appearances, of course, but that Elite 8 year was our first year as a staff playing in the NCAA tournament. So Duke Warner, our associate AD, who's also our trainer, who's got national championship rings, and Preston Green, our strength coach, who's part of that last Final Four team that Billy had, and really the rest of our support staff had been a part of some of the best teams in college basketball history. So their advice to us and to me was the same as I guess what you'd expect, going into a conference tournament, going into our conference tournaments in Conference USA and now in the SEC, and really the NCAA tournament, that all you can do is one possession at a time. I hate to be that cliche and that speaking in generalities, but it's really about that next opportunity. And really, if you play Thursday, it's really about Monday's practice and Tuesday's practice, and just staying in the moment, continuing to develop, stay together, and understanding that anything can happen. Anything can happen in the NCAA tournament. That's why it's the best sporting event out there.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. From a fan's perspective, it might be a little more fun watching Florida tournament games than from your perspective, but we'll let that sit as it is because you're more adept to do it than I am. I wanted to touch a little bit on going into a tournament where you mentioned that South Carolina game. There's a lot of familiarity there. I wanted to talk about, I know you guys had a game against Nevada one year. I think it was a 7-10 matchup. How is it different kind of scouting a team that you haven't had your eyes on all season, or really just hasn't even been on your radar, and then on Selection Sunday they're thrown right into your face?
Yeah, and I want to say we had East Tennessee State, and we've had a couple others where you're right, Jack. It's so different when you're playing a team that you're so familiar with probably in the NCAA tournament more so than any other time during the year, as opposed to a team that you have no idea. You can't name a player on their roster. They're on the other side of the country, or they're in a league that you're not familiar with. So it's just from a preparation standpoint, it differentiates really with your team and how you prepare them, when you show film, how often you show film, what you focus on, how to best encapsulate what that team and that program stands for. The biggest keys to victory, it could be personnel, it could be press attack because it's a team that's just whatever. It could be defensive rebounding because this team from the Sun Belt that we're about to play is the best offensive rebounding team in the country, or what have you. Right. So those decisions early on, I think, are really important. And of course, we're still learning. I don't think anyone's got it figured out to a T. That's why you got different teams advancing a little bit further every year, but still open to learning year in and year out as to the best ways, to attack those opportunities in the postseason.
That's a great answer, and we're very excited, hopefully, for a full season this year. I got a question from you on the Titan MRI hotline here from Dave. Your father and siblings are all ADs. Is that something you aspire to be, or are you too happy coaching, or maybe is that something you would look into, once you hang up the coaching whistle?
Yeah. Great question. I just never considered it, and I have as much respect for my father as any human being on the planet. I love him to death, and he's an incredible mentor, and respect the heck out of my little brothers and my little sisters and assistant AD at SMU. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Mariah. But they do a great job, and I'm happy for them. I'm proud of them. I loved the game of basketball, and it's given so much to me and now my family. I just can't see myself really not coaching and being around this game. You never know. I wouldn't say that I would never consider it. Of course, I'd probably have to go back to school and learn a lot. But that said, I'm happy coaching for sure, and I hope I can do it for a long time. I feel very blessed.
Coach, we'd love to have you here in Gainesville, and the success of the Gators has been something that really hasn't faltered upon your arrival back in 2015. We've got another question on the Titan MRI hotline from Scott. The Gators have the fifth best March Madness winning percentage in the NCAA. Do you think that you get enough credit as a basketball school, or is there sometimes maybe the overhang of Florida football and the giant that program has become?
Well, those are some really, really strong numbers, of course, of which we're very, very, very small part of. When we got here, the history of this place over the last 19 years, again, led by Billy and his staffs, just were off the charts. So that said, though, we embrace football here, of course. I mean, it's this is a basketball school. It's a football school. If you ask Jenny Rowland, it's a gymnastics school. If you ask Sully at the baseball, this athletic department, the imprint that Jeremy Foley had on this place, and the job that Scott Strickland does, it's the best athletic department in the country. And we love the fact that we can watch college football at its highest level, and we respect the job that Dan and his staff do, and they're going to win a national championship here. And Mouse wins national championships, and I could go on and on. Every sport here is producing at a high level. We all continue to recruit high character people with strong academic backgrounds. President Fox has done an amazing job, of course. We're a top 10 public academic. We've got a lot going for us here at the University of Florida. But we're not worried about us sticking out as a program. We like fitting in with excellence among all these other sports.
Yeah, and there's definitely a Gator standard out there that has been met and has been continued even through maybe when the Florida football team was down, the baseball team and the basketball team were always excellent. So there's never really a drought of success here in Gainesville, and we have not only you but all the other athletic coaches here to thank for that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was with this pandemic and having your guys coming back. You mentioned having to get your legs back under you and kind of see where you're at from a cardiovascular standpoint. What kind of protocols might hinder you from that, or how is it going to be getting used to the new world that really has been thrown in front of us?
Yeah, so the NCAA's implemented what they're calling a ramp-up period. So these first 2 weeks starting, really we're in week 0, it's just a testing week. Week 1 and then week 2, starting Monday, will be voluntary with Preston Green, who will do a great job with them just from strength conditioning. And it'll be very, very little conditioning, if any. But really baseline testing, let's get these guys back into a squat rack, back into a bench press. And then weeks 3 and 4, we can't do anything collectively as a team on the court. We've got to do individual workouts. And you mentioned protocols. They're very different, to where there's going to be limits, of course, on how many coaches can be out there, how many guys can work out together, how many managers are out there. Of course, from a health and safety standpoint, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And then so that really brings us to the start of school. And we won't really take that next step from a conditioning standpoint, from an entire team being between the lines, working on some offense and defense for probably another 5, 6, 7 weeks.
Right. And going forward with that, during a pandemic, I mean, there's going to be a lot of testing, a lot of kind of maybe social distancing, even though your guys are banging each other during practice and, they're traveling together to games and whatnot. How often is your team and yourself going to be tested during the season, if that's even information that's available yet?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might have been available to our administrators. I don't know that it's been forwarded to me yet, and it could be in my email folder. For me, it's like I can't even get to what it's going to look like during the season when we're traveling, when we're doing this, when we're doing that, when I'm not even sure how next week's going to look. You know what I mean? So we're trying to, again, stay in the moment and learn about how this first phase, how to best attack this first phase with our student athletes as we start Monday with Preston. How many coaches can go in the weight room, if any? How can I meet with these guys correctly, and follow all the guidelines in place from a social distancing, having a mask on, what time of day is best? Can we all meet as a team? If so, does it have to be outside? What if it's raining? There's so many things that we've got to figure out before we figure out what we're doing in terms of during the season.
Right, Coach, we very much appreciate all the dirty work that you guys do with the athletic department, not only the basketball team, but especially focusing on the basketball team, putting all these protocols in place and really getting these guys ready to give a good product to us. I got to ask one last question here. Next season going in, you guys are coming off what would have been an NCAA tournament berth. I'm sure you guys are going to be very hungry going in. What is your prediction for the season? Do you guys think championship, SEC championship? What is the ultimate goal here?
Daily to grow, for the season to max out. That's it. If we max out, I'll be able to tell you in January, February, if we're going to be talented enough to win the whole thing. But right now our focus is just getting better. Period. I think we have a chance to be really good. I do, but there's so many factors and tangibles, so many different aspects of it. We're going to be. Our potential depth is as strong as it's been probably since year 2 when we went to the Elite 8. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of questions there. How do players 6 through 11, 12, 13, how do they handle game 1 when they're not starting? How healthy will our locker room be? How healthy physically can we get and maintain that health? How do we deal with all of the craziness of COVID this fall, and attack these workouts? I do think it'll be arguably our most athletic team here at Florida. I like that we're going to be a lot older. I think that we're going to be, I shouldn't say arguably, it will be our most athletic team. Our speed, our quickness will be increased a bunch, in my opinion. We're going to press. We're going to run. We're going to be a lot more up-tempo. Our guys are excited about that. We're convicted to play that way with this team. How they handle that transition, again, is another factor. So I like our ceiling. We won't have one senior on the roster, yet we're going to be a lot older. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, see how connected this group is, what the work ethic of this group is. But we'll have a chance.
Yep, that's great to hear, and obviously in college basketball, experience and depth leads to winning. Speaking of experience and depth, at Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Coach, unfortunately, we are out of time for this today. Again, thank you so much for coming on. We are excited to see how the season pans out for you, and best of luck before the season starts during this quote-unquote ramp-up period.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity, Jack. Have a great day. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, Spa Royale, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the PodUp Show with Matthews in the morning. That interview by Coach White was brought to you by Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. I wanted to get into this day in sports. Many of you know that I'm a giant New York Mets fan. This day in sports was a little weak. There wasn't much to do, so I had to go through some digging, and I cheated a little bit. This is actually for tomorrow, but on July 30th of 2015, Wilmer Flores of the New York Mets at the time, he's with the Diamondbacks now, Wilmer Flores hit a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 12th inning to win the game 2-1, only days after he thought he was traded. Carlos Gomez of the Brewers at the time failed his physical. Trade didn't go through, and two nights later, Wilmer Flores is hitting a walk-off that led them to take the division lead that year and eventually gave them a World Series berth. That day in sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Don't fight your area rugs, take them to Area Rug Masters. With their convenient curbside services, you will never need to go anywhere else. Call 352-448-5999 today. Today's show is a wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. Tune in tomorrow where Shane will be back with another great media guest, and everybody have a phenomenal day. Thank you.
1st and 10. Matthews, near side, wide open, Alonzo Sullivan. He may go. Touchdown, Gators.